just realized everybody is here to party.
Greetings and welcome, fellow barium inimists, fluoroscopists, and cross-table lateralists. I am your host. Greetings and welcome, fellow barium inimists, fluoroscopists, and cross-table lateralists. I am your host. Greetings and welcome, fellow barium inimists, fluoroscopists, and cross-table lateralists. I am your host. Greetings and welcome, fellow barium inimists, fluoroscopists.
Test the mic. Test.
I just realized everybody is here to party.
Greetings and welcome, fellow barium inimists, fluoroscopists, and cross-table lateralists. I am your host, and I am not a radiology technician. Nope, I'm a technologist, and I've been in this field long enough to know that just because you came into my emergency room at 2 a.m. with a chronic back pain times 6 years does not mean the x-ray should be stabbed. This is the Radiology Technologist podcast for Rad Techs by Rad Techs. Thanks for listening.
Welcome to another Saturday edition of the Radiology Live Q&A. As you can tell, we have St. Patrick's Day coming up. And I'm sporting the red beard, Ronnie Redbeard today. It'll probably last throughout the week before I get sick of it and convert it to a darker color. But it looks like we've got everything working. We have Zesty on board and your x-ray tech down in Texas. Right on. Thanks for the mic check. And let's see if we can get this thing started. How's everybody doing out there? Cool. We might have a secret guest joining us in Clubhouse today. As you guys know, I've been trying to promote Clubhouse. Clubhouse, if you haven't heard, is a kind of like a podcast, a group podcast where everybody can join in, and you can have unlimited amount of open mics, and everybody can talk. Of course, you don't talk at the same time, but it allows us to exchange ideas and answer questions live and in real time. And so a couple weeks ago, I had MRI Man, which has his own channel on YouTube, and we shared the microphone and were able to answer questions about MRI. Let's see if I can bring him up here. MRI Man, there he is. So MRI Man was on the show with me, and he fielded questions about MRI. He's going to try to join in a little bit later today, or we might hear from his wife, who is also a technologist, much like my wife is an x-ray tech as well. And so it's a whole new... Hey, there you are. What's up, man? MRI Man, hop on Clubhouse if you can, bro. But yeah, MRI Man and I, we both have spouses that work in the field with us, and I'm going to have another possible guest on Clubhouse today whose wife also works in the field. And so let's get started with today's program. We typically review a little bit of what's going on Aunt Minnie, and then we jump over into our Facebook group. I encourage you all to jump into the Facebook group here if you are not a member already. I will link to it in the comments section right there. Come on in, join up, whether you're in the field or interested in checking out the field. We are here to answer your questions. In fact, that's the main purpose of today's broadcast, the Saturday broadcast. It's a live Q&A where we try to answer everybody's questions. I beg for you to hit the like button and subscribe. And I welcome any one of you to come jump on the show to join me in Clubhouse. You do have to have an iPhone. That is kind of the only hitch in the giddy up, is it's iPhone only and it's invite only. And as I have learned, unfortunately, once you send out an invite, you cannot get it back. So you only get a limited amount of invites. I think it's roughly 2 a week. And I've got 6 invites out that never got claimed because either they didn't have iPhones or something just didn't work. And I can't get those back. So I got to be more careful going forward. But I have other friends on there that have some invites that we can give out as well. So if you're interested in joining us on Clubhouse so that you can actively be a part of the show, I welcome you. Right now, the name of the room on Clubhouse is Radiology Live Q&A. And if I see anybody pop up in the room, I'll make you an admin, which means you have an open mic and you can join in at any time. So let's jump on over to the Facebook group, see what's going on over here. I did get lucky this week. For those of you that follow the group, you know that one of the top questions on there is, what is the best shoes to wear in our field? Because, you know, if you get stuck up in the OR running C-arms or whatnot, you can be on your feet all day. And if you work a 12-hour shift, that makes for a long shift on your feet. And so I've done occasional polls and occasional questions on our Facebook group. And you can always go to my blog here at the radiologictechnologist.com and use that little search bar right there. And you can see shoes is put in quite frequently. And it'll lead you to not just the occasional sales that I'll post for you, like there was one at Christmas there, but here is one of the surveys that I did where I posted 2 surveys on 2 different Facebook groups for rad techs. And I just said, you know, list what your favorite is. And I listed about 10 or 12 different shoes. And went over shock absorption, safety, sanitation for work. You know, can you wipe them down or not? Talk about leaving your shoes at work or in the garage when you get home. And based on the surveys, the polls that I gave, the Brooks Adrenaline was on there as a favorite. The Danskos, Allegrias, Skechers, New Balance. Some people still like the old rubber clogs. And then I jokingly added the Yeezys because those things are just hilarious in my opinion and stupid expensive. So Zesty's got some New Balance 574s with power slip insoles. Nice. So you've got to try. Yeah, Android kills the deal, I know. You've got to try the just go try them on the Hoka 911s. Let me drop back to my videos here because I reviewed them. Let's see, it's a big pit right there. So I did a review.
Technologist channel.
There's my favorite shirt, my tie-dye shirt. The Brooks Ghost versus the Hoka Bondi's 6. Let's see if I put some up there. Because not only do I review the shoe, but I also talk about the inserts, because inserts, like Zesty's talking about, can make all the difference. There's the inserts that I have. So anybody that's interested in what shoes go good with this job, you can check out either my blog post here about all the different shoes, and we scored them, and you can go see how much they cost on Amazon. And of course, anything you click on my blog that takes you to Amazon, if you buy anything, I get lucky enough to get a penny or 2 off of the purchase, which helps me pay for some of this equipment that I use and the Bluehost that I use for hosting my blog and things like that. But I'm bringing all this up because I got hit in my emails with a coupon to get a pair of Hokas for $89.98, and that's really cheap if you know the cost of the Hokas. There's Kwame in the clubhouse room. What's up? Let me see if I can remember how to switch you. I don't know. I think that may have worked. I sent you an invite to speak. See if is your mic on?
Hey, what's up, Ron?
There he is. Let me move my mic a little bit closer. In fact, I'll move you a little bit closer to my mic instead of moving my mic over. So I have with me now in the clubhouse, Mr. MRI Man, which I showed you his YouTube channel just a minute ago. And I always encourage any and all of you in the field, if you can blog about your journey in the field, and of course be HIPAA compliant, don't get in trouble at work. But if you can blog, or if you can do a YouTube channel and share your experience, it'll help everybody that's coming in behind us to be that much better. Because as we've talked about before, MRI Man and I, there just wasn't a lot out there when we were looking into the field. And so you kind of had to figure things out on your own. And so that's why I encourage people to share their experiences. And a lot of people don't like to be on camera. I didn't like to be on camera, but after a while you kind of get used to it. Or you can blog, which means just type up your experience and share it in story form, blog format. But I just wanted to show there is a coupon here in the Facebook group. You can grab these Hokas for $89.98. I don't get anything from that. That goes straight to jackrabbit.com, which is a shoe site that you can buy directly from. But anytime I see sales on our gear, which of course you never see sales on lead aprons or anything like that, but if you do see it on shoes or scrubs or even the little sticky stuff that goes on the back of our markers, I'll always try and share that with you guys. And let's see, we'll go over just a few of the different questions that have come up on the Facebook group today, or this week rather. Here's somebody, and there hasn't been an answer yet, so if any of you know anything about the Stony Brook University out in Long Island, there's someone named Marissa asking about the RadTech program there. So far, nobody has responded, and anytime we have stuff like this happen, because it is a fairly new group, I still recommend a couple other x-ray groups. One in particular is this Radiology Technologist Life. This one has almost 9,000 members compared to my 3,000. He's been out there about another year longer than I have, and this is ran by a friend of mine named Chris Cotting. And Chris Cotting, of course, is a tech. And so if you ask a question on my Facebook group and you don't get an answer, make sure you hop over there to Chris's right here. He's the admin, and ask the same question over there as well. And the odds are you will get a response out of one of the two groups. But he also does CT, or let's see, is it RadTech Boot Camp? Yeah, I think RadTech Boot Camp is his deal. So anyway, we were going back through and looking at the Facebook group to see what was new. There's the shoes. Oh wait, where did I go? How did I get back to here? Discussions. Let's see. Somebody asked for a resume writing service, and again, when you're looking for stuff like this, don't be shy. Hop over here to the podcast, or not the podcast, the blog. Type in what you're looking for, resume, and odds are there's an article over what you're looking for, how to write an X-ray tech resume. So I copy and pasted that in there for Andrea to let her know if you need help writing your resume, there's an article on that. Here's somebody looking for, I'm guessing they're wanting to sell some film. It says, any techs out there know of any docs still using film? And somebody said, check the veterinary. I mean, you got 6 answers just for that question. That's what I like about this group, is you literally can get 6 to 30 answers on every question. Jason Hernandez is a tech down in South Texas. Don't we also have, South Texas, Rio Grande? That's you online, isn't it? Right there. You're in the comments section. So we tried to get Jason onto Clubhouse, but Jason has an Android. And believe me, brother, I'm an Android person. I only used Androids for years. Hate iPhone with a passion, but when you have 6 daughters and a wife that all use iPhones, you finally just give in. What I said was I would switch over when they came out with a watch that worked on its own. And sure enough, they did about a year ago. They came out with a watch that could function all on its own, and it's actually saved me a couple times. I've been out without my phone and was able to get a call on my watch, and helped me out. So good to see the comments rolling through the comments section. And Jason's on there. Whatever you need, post it in the comments section, and we'll try and get to you if you're still on there, Jason. He's got the X-ray tech, right? Let's pop over there. We always promote people in our field that are doing their own thing. So here's the X-ray tech. There's his markers, right? He does a lot of Q&A type stuff, a lot of cool stuff. And he was going to be my possible mystery guest because his wife is a tech too. And we were going to see if she could hop on in Clubhouse with us. But not sure if she's going to be able to do that. What else you got? X-ray tech. ART exam preps. We always welcome those, right? How many times do we see that question? What should I study for the boards? I always say Appleton and Lang. Appleton and Lang has been my go-to for years, but to each their own, right? Whatever works for you, works for you. So, scrolling through the blog some more, or the Facebook group some more. I always try to post when we're going to do this live Q&A to give everybody a little bit of a heads up. And we've tried different slots. We've tried 9 a.m., we've tried 3 p.m., and seems to be about the same across the board. The most successful, I guess you call it successful by the number of people who tuned in, was a couple weeks ago when MRI Man was on with me. We had something like 600 people checking out the vlog. So always happy to have more people come check it out, give exposure to MRI Man's YouTube channel, my YouTube channel, and then I also promote other techs. If we go to YouTube and I go to so there's MRI Man there that I'm subscribed to, Sydney Lira. Make sure you guys check her out. She's going all out once a week and documenting what happens to her as she goes through her X-ray school. She is literally giving us a step-by-step on how she studies, how she prepares. It's really cool to see somebody brand new going through and documenting what the life of an X-ray tech is like. And of course, we've talked about Jason and his stuff. Kelly Grace is another one. She's not full-time vlogging about her rad tech school, but she is sharing some of it, so you can check that out, like the pros and cons of working in the radiology field. Tracy Walker's another one, and I think MRI Man is friends with him as well offline. But Tracy shares a lot of cool stuff, Tracy Walker. And then one of my favorites is X-Ray Ray. He's got some really good content. He shows positioning videos. He shows a lot of how-to stuff. And what I really dig is he's reaching deep and trying to figure out what he can make that benefits everybody else. Like here, the technique cards. He made technique cards that clip on to where your hospital badge or your company badge goes. So if you need to quickly refer to a mandible or something that you don't do very often, he's got those technique cards for you right there. Way cool. And then Julia on occasion will do some X-ray stuff as well. Day in a life, first day at my new job as an X-ray tech. So she is out of school now and got her first job. But if you go back and look at her channel, she does things I'm using to study and prep for the radiology registry, and day in a life of kind of thing when it comes to radiology. So I always encourage channels that promote our craft, right? Because if we don't do it, who is? So, MRI Man, you got anything new going on in your neck of the woods?
Hey, what's up, Ron? Hey, what's up, everybody tuning in today? Always great to do these videos with you, Ron. Some interesting things going on my side is we just made a video on it, is how the COVID, after people are getting the COVID vaccine, they're finding that they're getting swollen lymph nodes. They're seeing that in mammogram studies and things like that. I don't know if they have been bringing that up over there in your side. I just thought that was interesting. So they're asking patients when they come in to let them know before they get their mammogram, like if they had a COVID vaccine. So I guess there's a waiting period, not all across the board, but I think they're saying to wait 4 to 6 weeks after getting the vaccine before getting their mammogram, because some false positives can pop up, and they're seeing swollen lymph nodes and things like that. Have you heard anything about that, Ron?
Well, it's funny you bring that up. That was one of the articles I had pulled off of Aunt Minnie for today, because they were falsely thinking there was adenopathy going on until they realized. I think they kind of went back and looked at past history on older vaccines that they used to give that caused the same kind of reaction. This article that I pulled up on Aunt Minnie talks about the different. It was the H1N1 influenza that caused the same thing, and the HPV was also associated with unilateral adenopathy, but that one was in the ipsilateral deltoid, where they got the shot. But under the takeaway, it shows radiologists must now consider a patient's recent COVID-19 vaccination history as a possible differential diagnosis when they have unilateral axillary adenopathy detected. And so you're right, the mammographers are having to ask patients as part of their history now, have you had any recent COVID vaccines? And it's even happening with both the Pfizer and the Moderna vaccines, where it's causing that. And this is stemming from 4 cases that they've been following where they either had palpable unilateral adenopathy or it was discovered during the screening mammogram or ultrasound. But like MRI man's calling out, it's going to show up in your MRIs, it's going to show up in your CAT scans, it's going to obviously show up on ultrasound and mammograms. And each one of these 4 cases, it was called out either because of the routine mammo or the ultrasound, and then it went for further testing, and then the radiologist got involved, and then they realized, oh wait, these are all people who had their vaccines. So Aunt Minnie calls out mammographers will face an uptick in differential diagnosis in 2021 as the U.S. COVID-19 vaccination ramps up to include broader populations. So you're going to be seeing that a lot more, unfortunately, and it's one of the issues that comes with the COVID vaccine. And this leads us back to Aunt Minnie. I always encourage everyone, if you get the chance, it's a good way to start the day or on your way to your shift, or even at night as you're winding the night down. Check and see what happened during the day. And you can even go to your specific community. If you're in CT, there's a CT community. If you're MRI, there's an MRI community. Women's imaging community. It's also interesting. You see up here at the top, there's Europe, because Aunt Minnie has a sister site also in Europe. You can click on that and go see what's going on over there. I'll show you some of the differences. If you just go to Aunt Minnie American version, you'll see all these articles. AI could aid. AI can triage. AI reduces. We're talking a lot about artificial intelligence in America right now, and it's been a pretty big topic for a couple of years. If you hop over to Europe, not so much. Europe is focusing on a lot of different things, not necessarily so AI intensive, and maybe for them they're just used to it already. And it has been out for at least a decade now. It was about 4 years ago. I was at an RSNA, and my colleagues and I were noticing that about 50% of the new startup floor was AI companies. So it was clear that AI was a big thing. Another thing I noticed on this on the Europe site, if I could highlight it, but there's an article right here on how radiography training is bearing up in the pandemic. And, we all saw how it affected our students here and how they started losing their clinical hours, being told to practice on their own at home, which is, laughable to try to learn radiology on your own. But they're finally calling out, at least over in Europe, that it is problematic and they do have things to overcome. And then the last article I'll bring up on Aunt Minnie is another article. And if you did a search on Aunt Minnie for burnout, you would find dozens of articles. It seems to be an issue that never goes away. But burnout, yet again, is brought up as a beast of burden for our profession. And to boil this article from Dr. Berger down, it basically said spend more time outdoors. Make time to exercise. Focus on quality and not quantity when it comes to your communications. Make sure you're eating well. Make sure you're sleeping enough. Stay off your phone as much as possible. And just overall take some time to relax. My oldest daughter, I mentioned I have 6 daughters, and my oldest daughter is following the kind of the nursing path, if you will. She went through CNA school, and now she's trying to LPN on her way to RN. And she's gotten a job as a CNA at a caregiving facility. They actually have several kind of skilled nursing facilities around in our town. And they would work her 20 hours a day, 7 days a week if she would let them. And there for a while, she did let them because she enjoyed, what it's like getting out of school and you're finally making some money. You want to just gobble it all up and keep pulling it in. But at some point, you start to realize, I can't keep this up. This is too much. And we had her over here not too long ago on her day off, and her phone kept ringing. And it was her boss calling to say, hey, can you work today? She'd say, no, I'm taking the day off. And then she'd get a text from a coworker and say, oh, my boss asked my coworker to contact me. And hey, you're on the comment section. The coworker is trying to talk me to coming in now. And, so we're talking about burnout, and it's another common search term. If you go to my blog and search for burnout, I wrote an article. It's been a little over a year now about burnout. And I list a good, 13 things that causes a tech to burn out. And for each thing that I list, and you guys should check this out because it's going to affect all of you at some point. And for the most part, anybody in healthcare, really, but this is really aimed at our own in the radiologic technologist field. But the things that hit us, I try to list 2 ways to unwind it or to back it off or to get you out of that burnout situation. But I go through, the number one burnout is inadequate personnel or understaffing. And I'm sure we've all experienced that. Victoria, for sure, my daughter who's doing the CNA type work, understaffing is administration's way to save a buck while trying to keep productivity at normal levels. And what they don't seem to understand is there's no quicker way to lose staff than to overwork them by running what we in the x-ray world call a skeleton crew. The minimum amount when you staff, in administration, I've been in administration for about a decade, and they teach us that, at night you staff minimum staffing because there's not as many patients coming through. Granted, the ER is busier, but you minimum staff. But unfortunately, what senior administration who doesn't understand our world, what they start to think is, well, why don't you minimum staff all day? And if you get too busy, then call people in. Well, it doesn't work that way. People want steady jobs. They want steady hours. They're not going to commit to working for your facility if they don't know how much money they're going to make. They're going to go work somewhere where they have a set schedule. So inadequate personnel or staffing is one of the biggest ways to burn people out. And I call out, the problems that it causes and suggested tips. If you feel that your patient care is starting to become compromised by the level of understaffing, bring it up at a staff meeting. And there are certain keywords that staff can use that should trigger someone in administration to take notice. Words like patient care is compromised, or unsafe practice, things like that will get the attention of your admin. And when they say, well, what are you trying to tell us? Say, due to the understaffing of our department, we do not have time and or resources to give proper patient care. And if we do slow down to do the job we want to do, we start hearing about lower productivity on our shift. And then the alternative option I give in this perspective of being understaffed is just take your time with each patient no matter what. You may have, patients backing up outside, but your primary concern is taking care of the patient in front of you. And so don't compromise what you know as quality patient care because you've got to hurry up because they've understaffed your department. Take your time, and you're the licensed and trained radiographer. You know what's best for your patient. Do what you know needs to be done. And so I thought I'd spend the rest of the hour talking about these different burnouts because COVID has been on us for a year now. And we've seen a lot of different stressors that it's caused, from the lack of PPE to just getting inundated. I get a kick over this image of the fishermen up here where they're trying to catch a few and all of a sudden they're overwhelmed. Remember when they told us that we couldn't take any patients that weren't emergency patients around April, May, June, when they said no more screening mammograms, no more elective interventional procedures, all we can do are emergencies. And then once they finally released that, we had like 2 months worth of DEXA scans to get caught up on and 2 months worth of mammogram screenings to get caught up on. And all of a sudden we're like these guys trying to hold these fish back. We've got just way too much stuff. So that's your burnout situation. Number 2 is unusually high patient volumes. Did they schedule appropriately for that? After they sent everybody home and told you to use your own PTO to make a living when we couldn't do all of our exams, did they do just the opposite when they opened the floodgates back up? Did they staff up? Hopefully they did. Some probably did not. So you have unusually high patient volumes, and this can happen for different reasons. I used to tell my managers to get in the habit of watching the schedules at the outline clinics and the physician clinics, because there was always an indicator. When spring break was coming up, you'd always see a huge increase or spike in the number of exams coming out of those outpatient clinics right before spring break, because the docs would try to see all their patients real quick before they left for a week or two. And then those 2 weeks they're gone, there's like nothing going on over at those clinics. They would either just minimally staff with a nurse or two, or even reduce their hours to only being open till noon. So you have to be proactive in watching the schedules of everyone around you to help kind of predict. Another example is seasonal locations. I worked in Flagstaff, Arizona for a little while, where it was seasonal. You would see people come up there for the winter and leave for the summer, or down in Phoenix, you would see people. Actually, Phoenix, you'd see them come in the winter and leave in the summer. And Flag, you'd see them come in the summer. Not so much. They would come in the winter because we had a ski resort up there, but it was a lot less volatile than it was down in Phoenix. So you have to learn how to schedule your staff according to seasonal anomalies and holidays and things like that. If you're getting a new MRI installed and you know you're going to be down for a week, then staff can take vacations during that time, So there's that burnout for the high volumes and not properly staffing. Trying to take too many images of too many people in too short of a time frame will lead to mistakes, increased patient wait times, unhappy staff, and unsatisfactory patient care. So the tips are to figure out what your maximum workload is based on your equipment and your patient population and your skill level. See what your workload so you can track it. And when your workload gets to 75 to 80% of that maximum, that's when you need to notify the boss. Hey, I'm in this ortho clinic and we've got two X-ray rooms running, and we're at 80% capacity, and they're going to be bringing on 2 new docs next month. maybe we ought to consider adding a third room or something like that. Because even though you would think that the director's on top of that, and hopefully they are, there's also 50 other things that director is trying to keep their finger on the pulse of. So it's kind of like the radiologist. Have you ever said something to a radiologist like, "Yeah, I don't know if I should tell you or not, but I think there's something in this film, and I just thought I'd point it out to you." And hopefully they said, "Hey, I really appreciate that. The more eyes, the better. We're all in this together." That's a good radiologist. And a director is the same way. A director wants help pointing out things. They're not over at your outpatient clinic all the time like you are. They may not know that your clinic is bringing on 2 new physicians in the next couple of months. So anything you can do to help your director out with information like that helps them to plan for better staffing and make your job that much easier. So the third burnout we got to was unhealthy lifestyle, and there's your night tech eating 1 slice of pizza. I only had 1 slice of pizza, but it's the size of a table. I don't know if you can see that on your screen very well, but we get stuck in these ruts where we get so busy that we don't eat healthy. We just grab whatever's out there in the vending machine or whatever's left in the refrigerator that wasn't gobbled up by day shift. But it can cause a lot of problems health-wise, which affects our productivity. And the suggested tips there is just to make sure you're taking your PTO when you need to take it, to recharge your batteries, and also consider learning how to meal prep. A lot of people take their Sundays and they'll meal prep for the week, and then as the days go by, all they have to do is grab their stuff out of the fridge and take it with them, and that saves you money in the long run because you're not running down to McDonald's or eating out of the cafeteria. And you can also plan, like when I go keto and I want to go low carb, this way I can take some pulled pork and green beans, and it helps me monitor my intake. Burnout number 4, and we've all seen it, it's ambiguity. What happens in vagueness stays in vagueness, right? Ambiguity within the job. I always recommend keeping a copy of your job description in your file somewhere so that you can refer to it. That way when somebody asks you to do something that doesn't quite sound right, you can refer back to your job description and know that, hey, I appreciate that you need help shoveling the snow outside of our outpatient clinic, but I have things I need to do within my own department, like warming up my equipment and doing my own inventory and keeping up with my CEUs. Perhaps you should reach out to the building maintenance people to shovel that snow, because you know how it is. If we don't have a patient in X-ray, people walk by and go, "Oh, they don't do anything all day. They just sit on their butts all day. They don't see the ebb and flow of what we do, and they don't know all the things we do behind the curtain, so to speak." So always keep a copy of your job description so that you know what is expected of you and what is not expected. The problems it can cause is just extra stress. If you're ambiguous on what you're supposed to be doing, it can make you feel kind of helpless. A suggested tip is to set clear expectations of what is expected from each person on the team. Know your assigned job. Do it to the best of your ability. The old see one, do one, teach one comes up. Another alternative for making sure everybody knows what their jobs are is to take turns rotating the lead position. Own one particular location of your job. If you like the excitement of the traumas, then take the ER call. If you would rather do the OR, then be the one that's always up in the OR. But make sure everybody knows what their job is so there's no ambiguity as to who covers what and who does what. Burnout number 5 is your training. There's lack of proper training. We've all seen this to some degree where you're short-staffed and somebody says, "Hey, run upstairs and run that O-arm for our spine surgeon." And you're like, I haven't touched a C-arm in a year, let alone touch the O-arm. And so lack of proper training can certainly lead to a significant stressor, especially if you're asked to perform in front of a physician and you haven't worked on the equipment in a while. So some of the things you can do is just practice on that stuff. You can always pull a C-arm into one of your empty x-ray rooms and practice turning it on and moving it around and using the wiggle waggle and get comfortable with the equipment. You can ask for rotations every now and then. A good successful onboarding, in my opinion, of a new hire is to give them a full week of training in the OR, a full week of training in fluoro, a full week in the ER, and then a full week on standard exams in the general x-ray department. That's 1 month of kind of giving somebody the opportunity to see everything from everywhere at the same time that they're learning where all the units are inside the hospital. If your facility doesn't do that, I would recommend you gently suggesting it, because if you're at one of those facilities where they just hire somebody and say, Bob, you're in charge of the new hire, make sure they know everything they need to know, good luck, you're going to have problems. And so an alternative tip is when there's downtime. This is what I was talking about, pulling the C-arm into your x-ray room and practicing or something like that. Try to get yourself as familiar with your equipment as you can. Let's see what's going on in the comments section. What they forget is that working staff 80 plus hours a week because it's dangerous for the patient. Yeah, admin forgets, especially if they're not local, right? In your department, admin's up there in the ivory tower making their calls, and usually they have a supervisor or somebody that's really trying to plan things out, and they're not plugged in at least as much as we'd like them to be. Burnout number 6, your vulnerable environment. I mean, it doesn't get any more vulnerable than working in healthcare, right? You're exposed to all the sick people that come in, both physically and emotionally. You see a lot of mental trauma coming into the hospital as well. There's a lot of things that we see as radiographers and MRI techs and ultrasound techs that we wish we could unsee, but it's not possible. And so over time, that tends to make us a little callous, maybe makes us a little less understanding, less empathetic to our patients. And so some suggested tips are just to slow down and follow protocols that are there to protect you. I've seen plenty of nurses who double glove when they're concerned about communicability. I'm not a big fan of double gloving. I think you should, just be equally careful no matter how many pairs of gloves you have on. A double glove is not going to stop a needle stick, but it's whatever makes them comfortable. But don't be afraid to stop and assess the situation so that you fully understand what's at risk. And if you need to call a second tech in to help you, call a second tech. That's what they're there for. An alternative tip is to check out your exam rooms at the beginning of your shift. Make sure you've got all your PPE in place. Check your work list to see what inpatients might be coming down, and are any of them compromised in any way? Are you going to have to set your rooms up for any MRSA or any other kind of precautions? And know to the best that you can what's coming your way. We still get caught off guard every now and then. There's nothing we can do to stop that really, but getting a good bead on what's headed your way will go a long way in helping to control your stress to the extent that you can. And the Villa is asking about radiation therapy. Radiation therapy typically is outside of the imaging department. We can work together, but that's usually in the oncology center from where I have worked. The cancer center does the radiation therapy. The most common setup I've seen is they've got their particle accelerator and usually a CT scanner that they can do some planning on. I've lent CT techs to their department to help with the CT scan when possible. But for the most part in radiation therapy, they're autonomous from us. We don't staff their people. We don't work on their equipment. We do run some drills every now and then. I had a radiation therapy department right next door to me at one of my facilities, and we would run drills every now and then that If two of our scanners were to go down for some reason and we needed to do something simple like a head CT or something, we would practice on the Rad Therapy CT scanner so that we were familiar with it. But for the most part, all I can tell you is it is its own school program. It's 2 to 3 years, depending on where you go. It's above and beyond the general X-ray program. I think you can get into them without being an X-ray tech first. But I know in the old days, you had to be an X-ray tech to get into a lot of stuff. And so you'll probably find some rad therapists out there that were X-ray techs first. But nowadays, I'm noticing that you can get into a lot of these advanced modalities without being an X-ray tech first. So that's something you'll have to check out. Find your nearest radiation therapy school. And if you want to know more, let's see, I think I have a pretty extensive post on that. Let's try therapist. Because if I do radiation, there's probably going to be a ton of stuff that comes up. Nope, it's not any less schooling. So here it is. How to be a radiation therapist. 3 ways to deliver radiation. Types of radiation therapy. What is a rad therapist? What do they do? What is the working conditions? Is it safe? Where do they work? Educational requirements so you can get an associate's degree or a bachelor's degree. What are their competencies? I list out the licenses, certifications, and registrations. The career advancement for rad therapists. We talk about that a lot in our field, and I'll post this here in the comment section for you. There's a link straight to the article. We talk about how good radiology is for career advancement, how you can start out in X-ray and move up to CT and then to MRI and then to IR or wherever you want to go. Radiation therapy itself, I believe, is the end of that ladder. I don't think they have anything you can move up into after radiation therapy. But again, separate departments, so you really ought to find somebody that does it and ask them. You can probably ask that question in our Facebook group. I bet you there's a couple in there. How to evaluate the radiation therapy schools, how much does it cost, and is it in high demand? So check out that article, and it should give you quite a bit of information. Is it less schooling? Yep, already answered that one. So to go back to the burnouts, type A personality can be a burnout. Individuals who have type A personality are also more vulnerable to rad-tech burnout than others. These individuals are predisposed to seek perfectionism and have an inherent need to be in control. High-achieving individuals and those who do not work well in a group are also more prone to stress and ultimately suffer burnout. So the problem that can cause is, not much ever goes as planned. That's part of the beauty of the art of radiography is you've got a trauma patient, and you got to figure out how to do a lateral forearm on somebody. Maybe it's broken, maybe it's a compound fracture, or it's immobile, and you've got to figure out how to get 2 different angles on it. Type A personalities have a hard time with that kind of stuff because they have rules. They want to follow those rules, and they don't want to deviate from those rules. And it can cause a lot of issues for that person if they can't figure out how they need to stop and rethink their situation. So the suggested tips are just simply to, if you're working with one of these people, it's just to approach them and talk to them about how they perceive the workflow and how to maybe triage things, and maybe it'll help you discover what they aren't comfortable doing, and you can help them to get better at it. An alternative tip is not to let any one person bear the brunt of the workload. We've all seen that person that jumps up and grabs the first thing that comes off the printer, when maybe what's best is to have a lead tech look at each exam and hand those out in a fair and equal manner. You don't want to be the person that's always stuck with the cross table lateral hips, right? It'd be nice to go shoot a portable chest every now and then. So try to give that workload out on an even basis and prevent any one person from being stuck. Same thing with being assigned to different departments. You don't always want to be assigned to the OR where you stand on your feet all day, or always assigned to the morning run where you have to be there at 3:30 in the morning. Spread all that stuff around. Take turns with the different difficulties. Burnout number 8 is inappropriate equipment. We've all seen that. I made a joke one time in an administrative meeting that I had an IR room being held together with duct tape, and my boss was not too happy, but that's okay because she was like never happy. But it wasn't a lie. I literally had pieces of the table being held together with duct tape. And if nothing else, it successfully got her attention. Then I needed a repair approved. But we've all worked with inappropriate equipment, and it can cause a lot of problems, from unhappy patients to stress on the tech trying to get the job done when it's really hard. And so some suggested tips include, know what your protocol is when something goes down. Does your director, have they okayed you to be the first person to call and place the ticket to get the machine looked at, or do you have to notify the director and the director has to put in the ticket? Different facilities have different protocols for how down equipment is called in. So understand what that protocol is. Don't be the night tech who knows a machine is down and doesn't tell anybody until you're leaving at 7 a.m. and then now you've got a down equipment for the day shift that nobody has placed a ticket on. Alternative tip, much like being understaffed, when equipment starts to compromise patient safety, it's worthy to raise that red flag. Plus, you're the technologist and you're the subject matter expert. So if as a director, a nuclear medicine tech is telling me that their scanner is a safety concern, I have to take notice of that and start an investigative process. So use your knowledge of the field as the expert in your modality and explain why the equipment is not functioning up to full capacity, and explain what it means to patient care and what it means to productivity, and that will go a long way. Burnout number 9 is ineffective leadership. I'm sure none of you have seen that, right? Ineffective, and I'm sure Victoria, if she's on, would love to chime in on that one. But ineffective leadership, of course, affects everybody. There's a popular quote on LinkedIn when I wrote this that said, people don't quit their jobs, they quit their bosses. And we've all had bad bosses, and we all know what it's like to work for them. So, I even pulled some quotes out of some of the Facebook group discussions we were having at the time. One person said, it's not cool being mandated to stay for overtime because of being short-staffed. Which, obviously this was written before COVID because there was no such thing as overtime during COVID, right? Raina wished she could approach ordering physicians and tell them that the imaging exam they ordered is non-diagnostic for the diagnosis in question, but she feels discussing it does no good and even results in hostility for questioning order. Who out there has had something like this where a doctor orders, you see it almost weekly. Doctor orders, or a PA or an NP orders a shoulder, humerus, elbow, forearm, wrist, hand, right, for a ground level fall, and you'd like to go to them and say, hey, how about we dial this down to only what's really required and save the patient some radiation. But that sometimes that's not going to get you anywhere. Sometimes you'll get somebody say, just do what I ordered and quit questioning. I'm too busy. I don't have time. And so you're kind of caught in the conundrum there. And it causes frustrations and demoralizing effects. So some suggested tips is when you find yourself at odds with leadership is simply do your job the best you can, keep your head down, but don't turn a blind eye to inappropriate behavior or improper patient care. Don't do anything to draw unnecessary fire on yourself, but it's your job as that expert to stand up for inappropriate behavior. If somebody is telling you to do something that is not right, you need to take a stand and say, here's the correct way to handle that. And I've mentioned before, if I went to the ER and had an aggressive patient swinging at me or cussing at me or threatening me, I would turn right around and go back to the ordering physician and say, I'm not touching that patient. until you either sedate them or they calm down, because it's not my job to take abuse from an ETOH patient or whatever the issue is. So know, and again, that falls back on your job description. Know what your job is. Know what you are supposed to do and what you are not supposed to do. You are not supposed to put yourself in harm's way because some drunk ER patient is out of their mind, right? And I never had a doctor have an issue with me doing that. They may, roll their eyes or something like that and say, I'll call you in an hour. But, hey, it's not worth it to me. I don't get paid enough to get swung at, right? An alternative solution is, after evaluating the situation, see if you can offer a better solution. Leaders don't like staff who always bring problems, but they do like when staff bring the problems and corresponding solutions. So do some research on what other facilities do in these scenarios, or talk to friends you may have at other locations. So in essence, be the change that you'd like to see in your department by offering ways to make it better. We're almost through the burnouts here. Burnout number 10, and we're at 56 minutes. Burnout number 10, mental health trauma. We are often the front line of traumatic events. We see things that we wish we didn't see. We x-ray things we wish we didn't have to x-ray. Sometimes we get things on us we wish we didn't get on us. I can't tell you how many times I've had things on my shoes that I wish weren't on my shoes, especially when standing up elderly patients out of their beds or out of their wheelchairs and things drop down. But we are trained to deal with that, and we're trained to take care of the patients the best way possible. And so we're talking about the mental health issues. A suggested tip is to debrief. Every facility should have a method of debriefing the employees. So if a traumatic event does occur, you should have the chance to speak with a mental health professional and maybe talk through some issues, some emotions, and help to get that off your chest. The alternative tip is if you're just not able to process it, it's okay. But one of the great benefits of being a licensed radiographer is the other opportunities that you can do. You can leave the hospital if you can't handle the trauma, and you can work in an outpatient clinic. You can work in a doctor's office. You can go work for a mobile company that only visits nursing homes with portable x-ray machines. If you like to teach, go to your local community college and teach, or become a clinical instructor. There's a lot of things. You can go into sales and be a vendor salesperson or an app specialist. A lot of things you can do to get yourself out of those traumatic situations that can be very heavy on our minds. Burnout number 11 is the ergonomics. Homer shows how we're all kind of hunched over at our control desks. CT is guilty of this. MRI is guilty of this. Ultrasound, my goodness. Ultrasound is the only modality I know that has ergonomic chairs made specifically for that modality. They have straps that they can use to wrap the transducer cords around their arms. They have certain beds made to put patients on so they can drop little sections out and be able to access the heart for echocardiograms. Ergonomics is important in every modality, but it can certainly be a big factor in burnout. You just simply can't take it for too long. I've seen carpal tunnel. I've seen bad shoulders. I've seen tennis elbow. I've seen lots of bad backs out there. All kinds of issues. So make sure that you're doing your warm-up exercises, your stretching exercises. Get help when you need moving patients around. Ask a transporter, ask a security officer, ask a nurse. Get somebody to help you with your boosts where you're pulling patients up in the gurney or sliding them across. Get some help in doing that stuff, because it's not worth throwing your back out trying to do it on your own. Burnout number 12 is profitability driving the workflow. That's where the administration just keeps pushing and pushing and pushing How can we go faster and faster? I mean, you kind of get that in one sense, right? If you're an athlete, if you're a runner, you're constantly keeping track of your times, and you're working out, and you're trying to make yourself better and faster, and you want to beat your personal records. You want to do as good as you can every time, and even get a little better as time goes on. The world of radiology is no different. We want to try to get faster with our exams. We want to try to see more patients if possible. We don't want any patients to have to come back the next day because we didn't get to them. But sometimes when you have the administrators outside of the department that don't live inside seeing the day-to-day grind, they start to come up with unrealistic productivity numbers. They start just looking only at the numbers. Well, if you did 15 CTs on your 8-hour shift yesterday in your outpatient clinic, let's see if you can do 17 today. And then let's see if you can do 19 the next day. And what if we extend hours by 3 hours into the evening? And then we can add 6 more exams on. And think of all the money we'll make. We didn't get into healthcare for the money, right? Hey, Julia, no problem. Happy to give the shout out. Glad you're here. We're almost done with the burnouts. We're at about the hour mark. Remember, if you guys have any questions, post them in the comments section, and I'll be happy to answer any topic, even if it's about your YouTube channels and stuff, or how to advertise, or how to get more viewership, or whatever. But we're on we're on burnout situation number 12, which is the profitability overriding safety, basically. So the first tip, just like the number 1 tip, you have to draw a line in the sand to protect yourself and protect your patients. They offer really good pay, but they have so what I was trying to say here was, you see these places that offer high salary and you think, man, they are offering a lot of money. But if you could ask any of the current employees how often they're turning over their employees, you might find out that they're turning them over every 6 months. And that's because they're burning them out because they're asking too much. Like, I remember an OB clinic once, because I did ultrasound there for about 10 years, just ultrasound. And I remember an OB clinic offering like $50 an hour, $55 an hour. And I was thinking, man, that is awesome pay back in Phoenix. And turns out they were booking an OB every 15 to 20 minutes. And what they were really doing was they were billing for complete OB scans and only doing limiteds, which is illegal, first of all. But you're also, as a tech, as a sonographer, you're not able to see everything you really should be checking during that exam. If you're there for your 18-week checkup or 21-week checkup, and you're supposed to be doing a full OB complete, and all you're doing is a limited, you're not seeing everything you need to see, and that's going to start affecting your patients. And so that's an example of the profitability driving the workflow. They want to cram as many exams into that time slot as possible. What do we have? We have one more. We have burnout situation number 13. And that burnout situation number 13 is when they ask you to be a jack of all trades. And this is something that's been interesting, watching it unfold over the past decade, because I remember when I was first coming in the field around 2005, most hospitals had separate departments, and they very rarely even talked. I remember working in the X-ray department at Chandler Regional, and CT was across the hall, and the only time you ever talked to those CT techs was if they called over and asked you for moving help. But as time went on, we started seeing the benefits of cross-training the night X-ray tech to also do CTs. Then you didn't have to have 2 techs on at night, right? If your place was small enough or slow enough. And we got excited as techs because we'll get paid more money. The more modalities we learn, the more we get paid. Sometimes not what we think we should get paid. Usually not what we think we should get paid. But we were happy to cross-train because it gave us more skills, moved us up the ladder, and where it really showed was in the callback money. We would make a ton more money on callbacks as, say, an ultrasound tech versus an X-ray tech. But what has risen as a problem because of that is the administrators are expecting multimodality techs to be a dime a dozen now. you'll see the headhunters. They'll have job requests out there for sonographers who know general, vascular, and echo. And that's all they want. They don't want a general and they don't want a vascular. They want a sonographer that knows all three. And you know how hard it is to get trained in all three of those and to do all three? Because the odds are, wherever you're working, if you're an echo sonographer, that's all you're doing all day long. You're not stopping and doing a gallbladder or a thyroid in between your echoes. You're banging out echoes all day long. So to think you can pull out an X-ray, CT, MRI tech like they're a dime a dozen is crazy. But that's where we're getting, because we've been so willing to cross-train. They're starting to expect it now, and so that's your burnout situation. Number 3 is when you're being asked to do too many modalities. It starts to compromise your competency level, for one thing. You can't be good at everything if you're doing a little bit of everything. And so I spent several years on the night shift where I did X-ray, CT, and ultrasound. And I was able to keep my skills up, mostly just because I'd been doing all three of them for so long, and I took call at multiple locations, multiple hospitals. So I was able to keep my competencies up, but you've got to be really careful. And so I believe that wraps up the different ways to experience burnout. At the end of the article, here's some questions you can ask yourself. How can you tell if you're getting burned out? Check your exhaustion levels. Check your health issues. Check for, are you feeling a lack of motivation? Are you not wanting to go in? When you're on your way to work, I've heard this before. You're on your way to work and you start feeling anxiety. That shouldn't be happening. You should be excited to go to work. This is what you went to school for, right? This is what you wanted to do. If you're having anxiety on your way to work, that's a problem. Are you getting a negative attitude? Are you starting to kind of be the negative Nelly at your work? And then I go on in the article about how to reduce your stress. Your well-being comes first. Have an active social life. You've got to get some physical exercise in there. Take time to relax. See, all these things were the same thing that this doctor said on that mini, right? Spend more time outdoors. Make time to exercise. Eat well. Sleep well. What a shock. You know, this was written almost 2 years ago on my blog. So improve your sleep. Speak to a senior peer mentor. You know, you should, no matter what you're doing, you should have some type of mentor that's helping you to grow and expand and learn how to deal with things. And organizations are beginning to have an increased awareness of that and creating some buddy system type atmospheres, but not many. So it's kind of up to you. And I even list some self-care methods for stress relief, knowing your priorities, know when to say no. Like my daughter Victoria, they'll call you nonstop. They don't care how much they're working you until they see the payroll numbers and see how much they've been paying you. And then they'll go, oh, you got to have some time off. You got 30 hours of overtime, and about a day will go by, and they'll be calling you again, asking if you can come back in. So take time to relax, take a mini vacation, nurture your spiritual and emotional life. Make sure you're eating right. And then lastly, I talk about when is it time to quit? When is it time to throw in the towel? There are many reasons why people quit their jobs. Reasons can range from the toxic environment, lack of growth, better pay somewhere else. But today we're talking about the stressful work environment and how to improve it. So if you have addressed your stress problems to your bosses and they have done nothing to improve your situation, then it's probably time to think about quitting your job. It would be wise to line up your next employment prior to quitting, prior to having your half-baked quitting scene, right? If you've seen that movie, try to line up your next employer prior to quitting and plan it right. And maybe you can even plan it where you get a little mini vacation in between jobs. And don't forget about that option to become a traveling technologist. Nothing can give you a break better than being a traveling tech, traveling around the country, taking 6-week to 6-month contracts. Go somewhere where nobody knows you. You just be friendly. You do your job, and know that within a certain amount of time you get to leave and may never even go back there again. It's a nice break. I'm going to see if I can't get into some of that later on into my career once I'm done with school. The wife and I have been talking about it here recently. Maybe it's time we started to travel a little bit. It's always sounded very interesting. That's one of the reasons we both went through X-ray school, was to eventually travel. And MRI man, if you're still on, your wife's in. Is she an X-ray as well? I might have. It shows you're muted. There. I don't know if that helped. Well, if you're on, feel free to speak up. I'm pretty sure what your wife's tech as well. And then Jason was on earlier. Jason's wife was a tech with him. It's always cool. You there?
Hey, what's up, Ron? Yeah, I'm still here.
Tell me about
what was your question again?
what got you and your wife. I mean, how does being in the same field with your wife maybe help your job a little bit better, having somebody to talk to?
Oh yeah. So my wife being in the field of MRI is very helpful. Yeah, like.
Sorry, I lost you there.
Right. Can you hear me?
Yeah, sorry about that. I had an incoming phone call.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, just it helps because her being, an MRI tech as well, it's just easier to explain my day, and she can understand what's going on. Like if I had a bunch of difficult scans, like, I had a problem doing this lower extremity runoff, the coils weren't working, the system went down. Like, it's easier for her to understand. Or I had problems with patients, acting crazy or being difficult. Like, it's hard to get information out of them. It's like she understands things like that, and also we're able to just make jokes about MRI too, and like a bunch of the memes that I have on my page on Instagram, the real MRI man, like stuff like that. We're able to just joke about it, and it's just very easy. If I try to talk about MRI to my brother, he's just he'll be totally lost. I feel like they have a different perspective on what I do. Like anybody that's not really in the medical field or in radiology, they think that we just kind of sit at a desk and press the button, and they don't really understand it. Like, well, your job's not hard, it's easy. You just sit at a desk and you press the button. They don't really understand we can see the images as we scan, and the different kind of protocols we have to do, and dealing with all the patients. And it's like my wife just understands what it's like. Like yesterday, I had a patient that was she had dementia, she was confused, and she wasn't combative, but she really didn't want to do the scan, and it was really a dramatic moment, and one of those moments that you probably just kind of remember for a long time. And the patient was just very difficult. She was kind of screaming, moving her hands around, and it's just something I could just kind of vent out, and my wife would be like, well, yeah, that's happened to me before, and this is what I did in that situation. So she offers a different perspective on it, and yeah, it actually makes my job easier, just having someone to talk to about it. I don't really like ranting at work with the other techs, because they're just gonna tell the next person, so it's that's why my advice is not to rant too much about your job while working at your job.
No, I agree.
Right?
I agree 100% with that. And we kind of talked about that a little bit earlier, the negative Nellies and the type A personalities. And I haven't done an exam probably since about last June, because I've been administrative only. And I still, my wife will come home from her outpatient imaging X-ray job, and she'll tell me some different things about stressful situations, and it's just a part of the daily job. But it helps to be able to decompress and be able to share it with somebody that understands. I remember when I was in X-ray school before she got in, and I would be trying to practice positioning with her, or saying terminology that, she would just look at me like I was speaking a foreign language, but now she gets it. Now we can, it's funny. We'll be watching a TV show and they'll put up a chest x-ray backwards or an abdomen upside down or something. And we'll start giggling and our kids will just look at us like, what's your problem? And it's because we recognize they hung a film wrong or, different things like that. Or we'll be out in public and something will happen and, we'll see somebody doing something dangerous and we'll go, oh, there's a cross table lateral hip coming our way right there. Things like that. But
exactly.
I got to start wrapping up. We're an hour and 15 in. I got a softball game. That's one of my stress releases to go watch my one of my daughters is in the softball team. And so Zesty had asked about traveling tech. I posted a link in the comments section. There's an article. I actually interviewed Dale Hannigan, who has his own staffing company, RSG Health Services, and he answers a bunch of questions about how they pay and what kind of experience they look for. And I think you had asked, do you have to have a lot of experience? And the quick answer is yes. Of course, just like any job, they want a person with more experience rather than less experience. But that old adage, fake it till you make it. If you can have the persona of knowing what you're doing and feeling confident, that can take you a long way as a traveler. They can't expect every tech to know every machine. You can't be expected to know all the different types of x-ray machines or ultrasound machines. There's going to be some give and take, and the best thing you can do is when you're going on a travel assignment, if you can arrange ahead of time for the app specialist to meet you there maybe the day before or even the first day, and just review the buttonology of the equipment you're going to be using. That's optimal, or maybe there's some staff there that can help you do that. I did some relief in Wyoming for ultrasound not too long ago, and they left me a cheat sheet of how to push exams to PACS because it was kind of an awkward sequence of how you close the exam and get it onto PACS. And so there's a lot of different things they can do to help you get there. Right now is a prime season for travel techs. There's actually appears to be some striking going on over the COVID-19 situation. And if you go do any kind of strike relief, they're looking at $80 an hour in some modalities, $2,200 per week for a 3-week contract. There's a lot of different options. You can find that stuff on our Facebook group. That's where the headhunters, which is my affectionate term for staffing companies, the headhunters are posting it on our Facebook group. But if you need a break, you got to take care of yourself because nobody else is going to do it. Your bosses may try, but ultimately it's up to you to monitor your own health and keep yourself safe on the job. So read over this burnout article, look at the different things you can do, maybe assess to see if you're falling into any of these traps and what you can do to get out of it. And thanks for joining me on there, MRI Man. It's always a pleasure having you on. We need to have like a dedicated MRI day so that you can do most of the talking and I can just sit back and enjoy my Dr. Pepper. But Julia, I also welcome you on. If you're still out there, feel free to shoot me a text or a right here on my blog, the radiologictechnologist.com. There's a contact page, contact tab. Hop on there and shoot me a message and tell me what day. I do these every Saturday. Pick a Saturday and let's plan it out. What do we want to talk about? Let's talk about what you've been through and what you did to be successful, and let's bring some marketing to your channel and see if we can get you some more viewers over there. So that's going to do it for me, guys. I'm going to head off to the softball game. If there's anything I can do, remember, I've got a decade of radiology admin stuff I'm happy to share. I've got a stack of resumes that are good and bad. I've gone over those before. I've helped people with interview questions. I've done interviews if you need it for a school project and you have to interview somebody in the field. I'd like to try and figure out how to start helping you guys study. I kind of played around with that a little bit last Saturday, but I just haven't found a good method for helping everybody with the different study tactics. But anyway, it's been great talking with you guys. I hope you have a great weekend. Make sure you hit the like button on the video. Help me get some recognition for the channel. Tell your friends about it. Visit my blog. And we'll see you next Saturday or on the Facebook group maybe a little bit sooner. Thanks again. See you guys later.